Hello, Blitz fans of all ages, it's me, PlumCastle, and in today's video, I'm going to be explaining the two new events that came into World of Tanks Blitz yesterday. So, first of which, I'm going to start with this little order at the top because it seems to make sense. We'll work our way from the top down, and you can see once we click on that, we get a special quest, is what they're saying, where we win battles and we get various different rewards. Now, it should be noted, as you can see here, that for me to get all the way to the end, I need 150 wins. However, do note that this does seem to be different for each server, because when Blitz Post talked about this, it was literally 300 battles to get to the end, so I don't know why there's a bit of a disparity. So it would be best to go ahead and check your own game just to make sure how many battles you actually need to complete in order to get all the way to the end here. But with that said, let's go ahead and move right into this event right here. You can see, at least for me, for 10 wins, again, it might be different for you. The first reward is this Big Boss avatar, which looks pretty interesting, though hands down definitely unique. Next after that is this final boss camouflage, which I will actually showcase on a few different tanks in case you're interested in that. Overall, it's unique to say the least. I mean, it's not really something that you'd probably want to apply just willy-nilly, but it is something that looks fairly interesting, and you can see there that it is animated. It'll kind of go bright and then dim every few seconds. But moving beyond that, we have some boosters, which are meh. I mean, yeah, they're free XP boosters, but we don't really need to worry about those. 10 free gold boosters, which is pretty cool. Not the most gold on the planet, but hands down a good reward nonetheless. Then there is this special token, which I will actually come back to in a little minute. And then you can see after some time you can get a collect 'em all container. And in case you don't know what these are, it's basically just a treasure trove of a bunch of different tanks with, I believe, a 5% drop chance of a random tank. And then out of that 5% drop chance, you have all of these rewards. So needless to say, the drop chances on these are pretty small, considering that they are literally all 0.03%. So yeah, don't really expect a tank out of here, but if you can grind it for free, you may just be able to get a tank out of it if you're lucky. And of course, at the very end here, you get one more. Again, for me, it shows 150 wins, but I do know that at least Blitz Post is saying 300, so I think it might be either a person-to-person base or may even be dependent on what server you play on, so be sure to double-check that. Coming back to this token now, I can actually start to explain this, because if we back out of here, you'll actually see there's a secondary event underneath this first quest, and if we click on that, it's got a picture of boss mode. And basically, the way that this works is it's kind of like a side quest. So 13 days left, as you can see there. And I forgot to mention 13 days for the previous event as well. Basically, the way this works is if we scroll down here, we can see that we get these things called Fortium Shards by winning battles in a tier 4 to 10 tank. And this includes regular, ratings, or temporary mode. So literally, if you're playing a game, as long as it's not a training room or something, if you're playing online, you are actually going to be able to get these shards. Now, I will edit this and post the number that you actually get for a win once I've done that, as I don't actually know what it is at this exact moment. But moving on, you can see that there are some, the way that this works is they all go into a pool here, and then you can see that the first reward is 3 times multipliers. After that, it will actually unlock the Mad Games game type or game mode, which is really cool. After that is the CS-52 LIS, which I will talk about in just a second, because that's kind of what the token has to do with. The 4 times multiplier, and then lastly, Big Boss mode. Now, if you'll look very closely, and provided YouTube doesn't compress this out of the video, there are actually some fairly large numbers under here. For example, you can see 13.5 million, 27 million, 45 million, all the way up to 90 million for the Big Boss mode, which, needless to say, when you're dealing with numbers of millions, it's definitely not going to be doable when it comes to an individual, because the way that this works is this is actually a server-wide progress bar. I'm not entirely sure if they're actually posting this progress bar. They're just giving you an illustration of how it works, but you can be sure that in the back end this is going on, and you will be able to receive some cool stuff provided your whole server participates in enough battles, which is probably going to be likely, as I do believe that this may be tailored for each server given their size or dependent on their size. But coming back to the LIS and that token, basically what happens here is after 45 million of these Fortium shards are collected over across the whole server, the CS-52 LIS will actually show up as an item in the store, which you can then go and trade that token for. So if we come back here, just to give you kind of like a visual representation here, after the 65 or however many wins, again, dependent on your server more than likely, once you have collected this token and after your server has unlocked that special item in the store for the LIS, you would go into the store here, and just like any of these tanks here that you might buy for, say, gold, but as opposed to gold, you'd actually be spending the token you got on it to be able to get the tank, which is pretty cool. And honestly, I think depending on what server you're on, it may actually not be all that difficult. But yeah, needless to say, pretty cool. And I think it's also really cool that it's kind of a server-wide mission to unlock the big boss mode or any of these game types, because I've never seen Wargaming make it so that the unlocking a game mode was actually an objective. It was always just kind of a given, but I think that is really cool. But that is basically it. I suppose I can show you what the LIS looks like real quick here. Let me just pull it up. It'll take me probably a second to go to tier 7 premiums, and then it should be somewhere. There it is. So this is the LIS. Have honestly not played it a whole lot. Nothing really strikes me as being particularly special about this tank, but I mean, free tank, tier 7, pretty cool. I think the armor is relatively decent if I'm not mistaken. And if you really want to, you can see the stats here. If I, yeah, there we go. You can see the stats here, and I'll like scroll down slowly, and you can pause the video if you are interested in seeing its stats, because this video doesn't necessarily go in depth into this particular tank statistics. But with that, I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, have fun, good luck, and happy tanking.